It's a hard time. I think you have to accept if you're okay with the recording.
Hope I don't break your camera.
Hi, guys. I'm here today with Mr. Alan Parker. Alan, I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself to you because I know Alan from working with him for almost 17 years at what was then known as SunTrust Bank, and it's now Truist. And we had an awesome time working together as teammates. I really adored Alan's perspective on a lot of things that he would give me advice on. He didn't realize it, but a lot of times he actually served as a quasi mentor to me while he was at the bank because I would go to him for so much advice and realism. If I wanted to know something for real, and he knew that I didn't want it sugar coated, and I wasn't afraid to be spanked on the hand. Alan was the man. And so today, Alan is going to talk to us about two different particular items, managing teams, and as well as negotiations. But first, Alan is going to introduce himself. So Alan, take the wheel.
All right, thanks, Marilyn. Yeah, we had a great time working together. You know, when all of that ended and we all went our separate ways. I mean, I did miss talking to you, and same thing, getting advice from you. You're always the same way back with me. You were always straight, right to the point, tell it like it is, and we could agree to disagree and still be great friends. So it's great talking to you again today, catching up. It really is. So, you know, I kind of started out in the banking industry as Marilyn did. I went into retirement services. We managed retirement plans for companies all over the U.S. and did that up until 2007. They laid a large amount of people off in institutional trust, including myself. And I think Marilyn stayed around a little bit longer. I'm not sure how much longer, but she kind of saw the writing on the wall as well. And so at that point, I was looking for a job. 2007 was not a good time to look for a job. The market was so bad. So I had somebody say, well, you need to reinvent yourself. So I got to thinking, well, to do what? And then so I started thinking about the things that I really enjoyed about my job at SunTrust. And I realized that as I was working my way through and going, you know, to different roles and different titles and getting more responsibilities, I realized I was taking on a lot of HR type roles and responsibilities. So at that point, I realized that I can either go into HR and get deeper into that, or I can stay in the retirement plan services model. So I began to interview and look for jobs on both ways. Ended up working for a company after I got my licenses, worked for a couple of brokerage companies, and that was okay, but it really wasn't my passion. My passion really was helping people, you know, helping people, helping them grow, helping them make it to the next step. So I got a chance to work for a financial planning firm here in the Nashville area. And I came in as office manager, so I was responsible for, you know, the staff and all of HR because it was just a one-person HR function. And it really grew into a much larger function, VP of HR and admin. So I had all of client services, insurance, operations, responsible for all of our technology, hardware, software, phone system, cybersecurity. The building that we were in, I was also responsible for that. So really had a pretty big job and really enjoyed that job and the different things about it. But then in February of 20, they decided they no longer needed that position. And so I started looking for a job. So since then, I have been doing some consulting work for several different companies, whether it be HR, helping with job descriptions. What should we do with these people? How do we move somebody to a different area? I've been coaching individuals that been impacted like I have, where they're looking for a job and they don't know what to do and what to say, and haven't done a resume in 10 years. So helping them get those things polished up and then coaching them through that, coaching them before interviews and then finding out how it went, kind of doing a download and doing that. So been, you know, staying busy and staying active, as well as, you know, getting a lot of things done outside of the house and in the house and those things that you want to do.
Yeah, I kind of see that everything that you've been doing is really adding value to those that are coming through and need someone to talk to. But at the same time, I see a big value add in your positioning of knowing so many things from the financial market aspects of things.
Mhm.
And I see you being an expert at that, that has now not only an expert at the financial market in that realm of things, but also taking that and you've added the people side to that from an
Right.
HR perspective, and you're able to pull those things together. So
Mhm.
based on that, what would you say, especially managing in the financial markets area and then HR and having to run so many things for a company? And I imagine it was not a huge company because one person couldn't run a huge HR company. But from that perspective, I imagine you were dealing with a lot of managing teams in both of those perspectives. And so, what would you share with our listening audience today, our students, our MBA students, on what is the key to managing teams, especially when those teams may be in various different areas? And now we're having to deal with, like we're doing now,
Yeah.
Zoom
Yeah. Zoom
calls.
calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today I'm in one place and you're in another state,
Yeah.
but we're able to now still communicate and collaborate with one another
Mhm.
over this. And when we started this dialogue to set up this appointment for this conversation is through social media.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. No, unheard of years ago, right?
Exactly. And so these teams that are managing, they're all in various different places, and some are even in other countries. And
Right.
so what advice would you give to them from a real life perspective, not an academic perspective, because they get to read in the text about
Right.
how to do things from that perspective. But from a real life perspective, what was your secret formula for that?
For managing people, I think on the front end is just hire the right person. And,
Mhm.
and you would think that would be a very basic thing to say, oh yeah, everybody can do that. No, not everybody can. Not everybody knows how to manage or hire the right person. And
Right.
I've had some conversations about that. And some people are afraid to hire someone. And what I've always done in hiring the right person was, there are times where they don't have to have 5 years of experience managing a retirement plan or 3 years of experience in XYZ. Sometimes you bring people in that a lot of times where they've just got the passion, they're extremely interested in the industry that you're in, they want to learn and they want to grow. And if you've got somebody that you can bring in that is so interested, has that passion, has that drive, I've always felt like I could train them to do anything. So that's kind of the first thing in is getting the right person in. And then once they're in is coaching them, mentoring them, helping them move to the next level. I've always told folks that as a manager or leader, my number one goal, is to remove roadblocks so you can be successful.
Right.
And really that's the top of the pyramid for me. And then you begin to break it down from that of, okay, what are your roadblocks? What are you not being able to do? What are you not being able to succeed? Where do you feel like you're beating your head against the wall? So what I would do with my staff, both at the bank where you and I were and my last employer, was my direct reports. We had monthly one-on-ones. And the one-on-ones, I had 3 questions that we would go over, just 3 short questions.
Okay.
But basically it was, how are you doing? What are your frustrations? How can I help? And then the 4th question was always, is there anything you will talk about that's not on this list? And, sometimes meetings were 15 or 20 minutes. Sometimes I was in there for 2 or 3 hours, and that was fun.
You're right.
Because sometimes people need more. And I think people need to understand from a manager that we care, and we do care about you. Not that we remembered your birthday because it's on our calendar, but how you doing today? Are you having you look like you're a little frustrated. Do we need to talk, or you need to take some time away or take a longer lunch, or and so many managers just feel like, well, they're hired, they're in, they're good, let's move on. And I think the other thing about managing or guiding people, leading people, is, look, we all make mistakes, and you've made them, I've made them, we've made them together. We all make mistakes, and if anybody says they've never made one, they're just lying to you.
Yeah.
We've all made a mistake.
We do make mistakes, but what about, nowadays, or in this particular time, we don't have a lot of managers that's necessarily categorized as manager, but they may be the project lead or the project manager, and they're responsible for managing these various projects, like we had.
Right.
I recall that when one example, when we were doing the distributions, and your team had distributions that were done by one system, and
Right.
one, because we had merged, our banks had merged.
Mm-hmm.
Bank of Tennessee merged with Sun. What?
No, it was American National was bought by Third National, and then Third National was purchased by, I guess it was the bank before. I don't know if it was SunTrust at that time or not, but that's,
The trust company.
yeah, trust company, and then it all turned into SunTrust.
Right, right. And I remember going through this project, and we had to do these distributions systems and merge them together. And listen, I was a manager, but I wasn't I had to turn into the project manager.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? I put out a book on project management for idiots. I read some other things at first because I hadn't really studied project management at that point. But boy, after those projects with those distributions, I studied project management. I had to go and get stuff in gear for that. But my point here is I wasn't responsible for any of the people other than the ones in my camp that I had to work with. I wasn't responsible for your people. I wasn't responsible for, we did your group first, and then we did the Mid-Atlantic Bank group next, and we did Florida group. I wasn't responsible for any of those people, but I had to manage the project team that was put together to take care of that. And it was something. And I remember having to talk to the various people, yourself being the leader for your group and other leaders from the various groups. And it could be a pretty daunting task because we're dealing with different personalities, different cultures that's coming into the equation. The culture for American National and Third National was different than the culture for Trust Company, was different than the culture for Sun Bank, was different for the culture for Mid-Atlantic banks. So that was different. What advice from an HR, putting on your HR hat, would you give to a group like that?
I think have a great project manager like you were. You did a great job. But then I also think having, and I'll toot my horn a little bit. I mean, somebody like me who's got a lot of respect for you and what we're doing, and you and I having a very good understanding of what me and my people are responsible for and what you and your people are responsible for. So I think that's, what the end result is, who's responsible for what. And then a lot of communication, and it's sometimes it's daily communication, sometimes it's multiple times a day. And some of that we had email and some we didn't. So a lot of that was phone calls. It wasn't, let me send her an email. Yeah. And so that wasn't that long ago. But it was just, I think communication is key. It is just so extremely important from the beginning to the end. And I've always thought about in the project, a lot of people get started on the front end and start working. Well, for me, I've always, all right, what is our end result? Where are we going? What is the goal? And then start to work toward the front and then work our way back. Because if you don't know where we're going, it doesn't matter what the project is, we're never going to get there. Right. So what are the goals? What are the results? What do we need to do? And then I think it's attention to detail. It's, you hold me accountable for my people and what they're supposed to do. I hold you accountable for your people and what they're supposed to do. So I think, in that situation where they didn't report to you, my folks knew we don't want Marilyn to call Alan. We don't want that to happen. We need to get this done. Or they'll come in and say, Marilyn or one of the folks that worked for you, they're asking for this, but we don't have this. And how do we provide that? And then I would have follow-up questions. And sometimes it was just a terminology difference. In your system, you might call it something, and in our system, we might call it something different. We were talking about the same thing, but our terminology was different based on system terminology. So again, I think it just goes back to
accountability partner.
Yeah.
Having it on the other end, that accountability partner, and making sure that the two people understood each other and had that direct ability to communicate. And and for me as a project manager, knowing that I had the manager's ear in case something, or support, I wouldn't say ear, support in case something went wrong.
Oh yeah.
You're communicating to us now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think those are the most important things.
Yeah. So let's talk about negotiations, because part of project teams is also negotiations, even though that is a whole different course that I'll be talking with students about, and that's negotiation, contract negotiations, negotiations within the company, negotiations period. And when I think about negotiations, I think about a lot about my previous world with you and the RFP process. My goodness, did we go through some RFPs?
Yeah.
and for those on there who don't may not be familiar with requests for proposals, that's the RFP, request for proposal or RFP process. And so even today in my world, I'm an independent contractor consultant for HR. So we can talk more about that, Alan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually put in bids through organizations to take on the hiring for them. So that may be something you could help me with.
Oh, definitely.
On that end. And at first I have to get the contract. Once I get the contract, then I go through and hire people that take care of the contract for me. But yeah, it's you got to be able to negotiate and negotiate process negotiation. From my perspective, I don't know about yours, Alan. From my perspective, it takes understanding the market, understanding the people, understanding the environment that you're going up against in order to make the most of it. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree totally. And, you know, the negotiation piece, some people think it's, you know, you're only negotiating when you're buying a car or a house or a big deal. But the reality is, short of going and buying a stick of gum, I mean, you know, or filling up your car, I mean, everything is kind of a give and take or negotiation. So, you know, when you're hiring an individual, again, as we talked about a minute ago, you got to hire the right person, but then you got to pay them what they should be paid, so they're not continuing to look. You know, so many people say, oh, I'm going to take a job, but that's not really what I want to do, or it's not enough money, so I'm going to keep looking. Well, you don't want them to do that. You want to go ahead and get them in, you know, at the right level. And you know, sometimes what I've done is, if I've been a little bit unsure or uncomfortable or something about the process, I'm 90% sold, but not 100. I might bring them in at a slightly less number and tell them we'll review it in 60 days or 90 days. And these are the things that I'm going to be looking for. And if, you know, and then we move on, and been very successful in doing that with a few candidates. I don't do that with everybody, but a few that are really kind of stretching a little bit, that's been good. So I think it's just a give and take. And I think in the negotiation, you know, at the end of the day, if both parties are pleased, satisfied, happy, whatever word you want to use, with the end results, then I think it was a good negotiation.
Right.
So
I agree with you. I agree with you there. I was thinking about when I first took the job, and especially these are for our MBA students out there. When I first took the job at SunTrust, the manager that I was working for came to me. She had lunch with me, and she said, "We can't afford to pay you that. I don't even make that kind of money. So thank you for meeting with me, but it's not going to happen."
Yeah.
Well, I stuck to my guns because I had to research to know what my worth was. And she went back, talked to the people. Her manager then called me and said, "Can you come back tomorrow? We want to talk to you." And I said, "Well, I can consult for you guys, but I can't work for you making the kind of money she talked to me about." And I'm grateful for her. She's a nice lady, but I can't. And I went back. They came back, and then they structured a deal for me. They said, we'll pay you. We can't pay you at that total amount, but we can pay you this, and that's still making more money. That means we got to revamp our whole department, because obviously we're paying people the wrong money. Obviously. And so they revamped that, but they gave me a hiring bonus and then a raise every 3 months to make up for that. And so that worked for me. Because I knew, and so once I did that, I knew though I had to go in and do my part. And that's why y'all thought it was crazy. Y'all probably thought I was a crazy person on the other end, working all types of hours.
Yeah.
I also think that negotiations, and this is what I had a problem with, and people like yourself had to help me. As a woman, I had a hard time on negotiations at the company with the different groups, because I thought that people were trying.
You there? All right, I can see you now.
All right. So was it me that lost or you?
I don't know. It showed that you didn't have any bars, but you know how that is. You blip in and blip out. So there's no telling.
But anyway, the whole thing about negotiations for me was, the biggest thing was negotiating within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And it was people like you I had to go to kind of help me maneuver through negotiating within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a woman in a male-dominated business.
Mm-hmm.
The management was mostly male-dominated.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. And on top of that, I'm just going to be honest, I'm a Black woman at that. So,
and you're right. Some people, that wasn't probably an issue. I mean, you're right. It's not right. It's not correct, but you are right in that with some people, you know, you had to earn that respect a little bit harder, which is wrong, but you had to.
I had to.
Yeah.
And so in order to earn that respect, I had to get to know people like Alan better and others in order for me to know how to maneuver through the organization. Sometimes I didn't even get it right, but to maneuver through the organization, and communication was a big factor. And you can't, a lot of times, and I'm going to say, a lot of times as a woman, we put too much emotion into our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we really need to put facts and
I agree. Yeah.
it in a way that is understandable in the language that those we're speaking to can understand.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't matter as much, even though I would kind of craft it that I'm a Black woman, I'm a woman, and they just don't want to listen to what I have to say. I could get emotional at times when I first started, especially till I learned a lot of things and took some etiquette classes to really learn, you know, you can't approach people that way. And you can't write your emails that way when you're writing back to people because they sound accusatory. Even though you don't say, you don't point fingers, it's the way it's laid out that sounds accusatory. And so people don't take lightly to that. And you got to understand the different, you know, kind of genres of communication that you're dealing with. And I think that kind of starts with what school did people go to and what they had to read. Like, you graduated from Stanford University. I remember my time at Stanford University, we studied the great writers. That was a course we had to take at Stanford to major in business. And it wasn't so much, and people said, well, why do I have to study all this literature? Because literature was a way of teaching us how to communicate with various different cultures.
Yeah, and I had to do the same when I was there.
Yeah, and so I was like, I don't understand why I'm doing this, but to this day, I still read people from the great literature perspective, and I understand things better because I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. It's right together. So that standpoint of negotiation, because unfortunately in college, many of our MBA students are women versus men, and they really want to know how to get things done. And that would be my perspective. What is your perspective on that?
You know, you talked about some biases that you felt that you had, some things where you felt were stacked against you from the beginning. I think we all have those. I've had those as well. I've had those due to the person you work with, the person that used to have your role, someone in your department that they don't like, so they're not going to speak to you. You know, Chattanooga wasn't as bad, but once I moved to Nashville, I mean, I had to battle through a lot of those things. So just because you are a Black female or, you know, a Black male or whatever, we all have those issues. We all do. There are all these biases. So I would say just, be as kind and courteous, help through the emails. What I've always said with emails, and I've coached people, that'll have a curt email, and I'll be like, you know what, write the email. Don't put who you're sending it to in the to field yet. Write the email, get your emotions out there, leave it alone for a day, come back, read it again, and then plant flowers around it, meaning make it nice, make it okay, kind of proofread it to make sure that the reader is not going to take it wrong. And especially, when you and I were getting started, it was a phone call. We'd pick up the phone and talking, and I could hear your voice and I could hear what was going on. And there were times I was like, Marilyn, you okay? Is everything all right? Or you say the same to me. So, but now it's email, or it's something like that. And it's a lot more difficult. So I think so many people don't think about what they write and they just put it out there. So I think that's part of it. And I think, it's meeting people and just constantly putting yourself in front of people and seeing how you can help. When I moved to Nashville, they began to restructure how we were doing business, and all of the revenue went into Atlanta and to the local banks. So they were like, why are you here? What are you doing? You can't help me. And as I began to meet with the leaders and figure out what their frustrations were with us and our service, what we were providing, and then if I could fill in that hole and help them, all of a sudden I became more important to them.
Right.
And I became helpful. And I can remember being on vacation one year, and the bank president called and said, I got a major problem. We've got a client, they've got a retirement plan, they're not with us, these things are going on, what can we do? And I said, well, if we can get over here, we get it fixed. Right. And we get that orchestrated while I was gone. And up until that point, I really didn't think the guy was listening to me a whole lot. He was kind of like, oh, okay, all right, yeah. But I think he heard enough in me constantly going and meeting with him for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it was, that when finally something came up and finally he needed help, he didn't hesitate to call me, which was great. And then after that, he and I got along, maybe not the right term. He trusted me and respected me more because he saw what I was able to do and what my people were able to do. So I think it's just, beat your head against that wall and just keep going and keep, can I just have 5 minutes? And when you say you're going to take 5 minutes, take 5 minutes. Because at 5 minutes, say, I only said I was going to take 5 minutes. Do you have a couple of more minutes? If not, I can go. I would always go in behind people and I would say, I need 10 minutes. And they were like, okay, or I need 2 minutes. And I was like, oops, wait a minute. I'm sorry, 2 minutes are up. Do you have any questions? I'm done. And they're like, well, when you come in and say 2 minutes, you mean 2 minutes. When so-and-so comes in and says 2 minutes, it could be an hour and a half. And I was like, well, I'm not going to waste your time. And again, they respect you for that. Respect when you say you need 2 minutes, that's all you need, or 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And then I think the other thing is just, if you're supposed to be in a meeting at 10 o'clock and it's a group meeting, be 5 minutes early. Just be early. Be the first one in the room. There's nothing wrong with that. If it's a telephone call, like when you set this up with me, I think I logged on 3 minutes till, just because I want to be early. So if I have some technical issues, I can fix them. Especially if it's an interview, I want to be early. So it's those kind of things that you do all of those things right. You've got a smile on your face. How can I help? What can I do? And then when they say, you can help me by doing this, well, then follow through. Make it happen. Get it done. Give them correct timelines of, if you can't get it done today, it's going to be next Thursday, tell them. It's going to be next Thursday before I can finish this. And all these things seem really trivial and yeah, we got it and we know. And let me tell you, those are the things that make a difference from people, whether they're above you in the organization or below you. It's whether or not they're going to trust you or seek you out or feel like you're going to be an expert for them or part of their independent board, as some people will call it. It's doing all those little things right. And those are so easy to do. And I think those things are extremely important. And whatever bias is there, and we've all got them, you get past all that and they forget about it.
Exactly. Well, this is excellent. This has been a great conversation and dialogue, and we'll have to catch back up with Alan a little bit later. Let's see how things are going on his end.
Yeah.
But Alan, can you tell our audience how to get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's Alan Parker 1, but if you go to LinkedIn and put in Alan Parker, you will see my mugshot over there in the top left. And and that's really the best way to get in touch with me. My email, if you want to shoot me an email and ask me a question, be more than happy to help. gaparker01@gmail.com. So I think those are two of the best ways. And like I say, if I can help anybody with anything, whether it's, coaching, thinking about a job or those, whatever, I'm more than happy to help you. So I wish you well, wish you luck. I've got a great instructor. Marilyn is phenomenal. Always enjoyed working with her. And I know there were times that we were at the bank, I would just frustrate her to tears. And she would just say, I don't know why you won't let this go. But again, as I mentioned earlier, she and I had a really, really, I thought a great working relationship. And somebody, she said it about me, but I could always trust Marilyn. I could always call her and say, what's the deal here? What's going on? And there were times that she and I just would not agree. And I'd finally call her and say, look, I still think this is wrong and I don't like what we're doing, but I'm going to trust you. Let's go with it. And
exactly.
So, and that's what a great team is.
And I think that's what great negotiations is all about as well. And you can't have great management of teams without, especially in any kind of project position, without knowing how to negotiate and work with people. And that's basically what Alan and I have been talking about here today. And I thought how great that you have things from a male perspective and as well as a female perspective. And we talked about the real deal. We didn't script anything here today. We just went with our flow, knowing that the topics we wanted to talk about was managing teams and negotiation. And we blended in our experiences. And that's what education is about. Even in the classroom, you always want to take what you already know and blend it in to that new information to make something awesome out of it. So we're going to play our outro music here for a moment, Alan, and I'll be back with you.
Okay.
This has been the Business and Career Podcast with Dr. Marilyn Carroll, where passion meets purpose. Want to connect your passion and purpose? Book some time on Dr. Marilyn's calendar at calendly.com/Dr. Marilyn. Dr. Marilyn has offices located in Dallas, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia. You can reach Dr. Marilyn at drmarilyncarroll.com, on Twitter at Dr. Marilyn, LinkedIn at Marilyn Carroll, PhD, Facebook at Dr. Marilyn Carroll, and Instagram at Dr. Marilyn Carroll.